Over 130 years ago, the unity movement began. And here we are 130 years later. But it didn't begin then, it actually began before that, particularly with the co-founders of Unity, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. It's very interesting that from the very beginning, healing and wholeness was a theme that was emphasized. And probably it was because of the stories that the lives of Myrtle and Charles held for us. Charles grew up in Minnesota. We have a Minnesotan here. He grew up in Minnesota, and as a youth, he was injured in a skating accident. For 2 years, he was perilously close to death, but he did survive. But one leg no longer grew, and so he had a leg that was shorter, one shorter than the other. And so that healing he worked with in faith over a period of years, and it changed. But Myrtle particularly grew up in Ohio, was able to attend Oberlin College, which was unusual for women at that point, but she had been diagnosed with tuberculosis. And the expectancy of her life was not very great. She met Charles, and that's another story, but together they moved here and there, a number of places. They were in business together, and eventually they ended up in Kansas City. They were avid learners, and so they were always studying other religions. They were studying new thought. They were really energized by the transcendentalist, and then beyond that, new thought, things that we would now know as having their origins and were divine science and Christian science, all of those in that new thought cauldron, so to speak. So they would take every opportunity to learn that they possibly could. And when a gentleman named Dr. E.B. Weeks came to Kansas City to lecture, even though Myrtle was very ill, she insisted that they go to hear Dr. E.B. Weeks. And they did. Charles took it all in and added to everything else. Myrtle had a life-changing experience because the one thing that Dr. E.B. Weeks said that she took to heart, that she believed, she just knew it was the truth for her, was this: I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. So she began for the next couple of years working on healing herself because she knew that this was the truth of her being. It's interesting the way she did this, and I want to share just a little bit from a book called The Story of Unity. If anybody wants to borrow this, let me know. It's a great, great read. But here's what Myrtle had to say. It flashed upon me that I might talk to the life in every part of my body and have it do just what I wanted, have dominion, as that daily word said. I began to teach my body and got marvelous results. I told the life in my liver that it was not torpid or inert, but full of vigor and energy. I told the life in my stomach that it was not weak or inefficient, but energetic, strong, and intelligent. I told the life in my abdomen that it was no longer infested with ignorant thoughts or disease put there by myself or by doctors, but that it was all athrill with the sweet, pure, wholesome energy of God. I told that my limbs, that they were active and strong. She goes on, I went to all the life centers in my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and power. And finally, she says, I want everybody to know about this beautiful, true law and to use it. It is not a new discovery, but when you use it and get the fruits of health and harmony, it will seem new to you, and you will feel that it is your own discovery. Well, 2 years after Myrtle encountered Dr. E.B. Weeks and that idea that she did not inherit sickness as a divine creature, she was healed. She did that by talking to her body. She did that by going into a quiet time, sitting in a chair, and sitting a chair opposite herself, in which she envisioned that the master teacher Jesus was there. And she had conversations with Jesus and conversations with her body. And she was healed. So the question comes to us, should I expect to be healed? Shouldn't I just accept my lot in life as it is? What role does faith play in this? And if I'm going on this track of healing, how do I heal myself? Well, those are a couple of things we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to get it all into 20 minutes, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. In the Christian scriptures, there's a story. Well, there are lots of stories about healing, and whether you take those scriptures to be literal, the truth underlying them is undeniable. Here's one of these familiar stories. A woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind Jesus and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Jesus turned and saw her. "Take heart, daughter," he said, "your faith has healed you." Your faith has healed you. Notice what this story says. The woman did not have her focus on her disease, on her malady, on her illness, but the focus was on just touching the cloak of someone who had shown that this is possible. Someone who gave us the idea that we could heal ourselves. Faith it was she had. And when she did, she was healed. Whether the story is literally true or not does not matter. The truth is there that when we reach out in faith and claim the wholeness that we are, we can be healed. Our prayer chaplains, at Unity of Payson, try to emulate this idea that we don't look at the disease. When someone requests prayer, and often it's for physical healing, when they request that prayer, we get away from the condition pretty quickly. And we turn to affirmations of the truth, affirmations like the 12 powers, the truth of life, the truth of faith, the truth of love, whatever seems to be applicable. So that physical healing that you desire really depends on your faith and your ability to focus on that which you believe is the truth for you. This was true in Myrtle's experience. All that talking she did to her body wasn't about the disease. It was about the wholeness and the function of each of those organs and cells. There's a wonderful New Thought musician who wrote a little song, a very simple little song, that really is very much like what Myrtle experienced and how she was working with her body. It goes like this. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad. What is it? I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I don't know it as much as well as some of you do. That approach in faith to the positive, turning the mind aside from the negative, turning away from the condition, whatever it may be. The key spiritual truth that I developed as I looked at this topic today was this: as my faith increases, I can heal my body, my mind and emotions, and my spirit. We've emphasized in this first point the physical body, but let me move on. And by the way, they're intertwined: body, mind and emotions, spirit. None of them are isolated from the others. When we think about the mind and the emotions, we think about something often that's broken. The other morning in Morning Cafe, and by the way, if you haven't gotten a chance to sit in on Morning Cafe at 9:30 every morning on this Zoom channel, it's a wonderful time, and you never know what's going to come up, what wisdom will come into that room. One morning this last week, somebody talked about a vase being shattered into many pieces. And I think that's symbolic of mental or emotional disease or dis-ease, that idea of shattering. But you go on to say, if I take those pieces, those fragmented parts of me, and I put them back together again, and with a strong bond, the vase becomes different looking, but probably stronger than ever. So that shattering, that fracturing, is what often we encounter when we talk about mental or emotional dis-ease. One of the teachers that I love is Louise Hay, the late Louise Hay of Hay House Publications. And she wrote a book that was, of course, Heal Your Body. And in this book, she says that there are metaphysical, beyond the ordinary, beyond the conventional, underlying metaphysical causations for everything that we experience as dis-ease. I want to share just a couple with them, a couple of those with you, so you can get the idea. She talked about the problem, she talked about the probable cause, and then she went on to the positive end of things, and she talked about the affirmation that countered that, the statement of faith, if you will. Let me give you a couple of them. How about insomnia? Anybody have insomnia? Well, from time to time I do. So Louise Hay says that the probable cause of insomnia is fear, not trusting the process of life, guilt. Underlying that physical condition is an emotional or a mental conditioning, and they're tied together. She had a nice affirmation, a faith-building affirmation, I call it, and here it is. I lovingly release the day and slip into a peaceful sleep, knowing tomorrow will take care of itself. How about a stiff neck? You ever had a stiff neck? Louise Hay says if that's the problem, here's the probable cause: the inability to be flexible. Makes sense, doesn't it? And she gives us this affirmation, really simple, but positive. I am peaceful with life. I am peaceful with life. Or maybe even something more emotionally oriented. How about depression? There may be a few of us that have experienced that at one time in our life. And she says that the probable cause for the problem of depression is anger you feel you do not have a right to have. Anger you feel that you do not have a right to have hopelessness. And here's her very obvious positive faith-building affirmation. I now go beyond other people's fears and limitations. Did you get that? I now go beyond other people's fears and limitations. I create my life. I recommend that you get this book. It's a wonderful resource. How many have this book on their shelf? Oh, in here, there's quite a few hands, and I'll bet there is online as well. That mental and emotional disease is often related to our inability to value ourselves as we are valued by the divine. That can turn into self-doubt, self-abuse even. So that inability is what keeps us. How do we go beyond that? We look to the truth of our heritage, the truth of us being divine expressions, having all of those powers that we talk about when we talk about the 12 powers. We are so much more than we believe ourselves to be. There's another scripture in that Christian scriptures in the same chapter of Mark 9, where there's a father that comes to Jesus and says, I have a son that's, he called it possessed. He throws himself into the fire. He causes all sorts of havoc and chaos for us and our family. And Jesus asks the man, do you believe he can be healed? And the man cries out immediately, I believe. Help my unbelief. That faith that we're looking for doesn't come instantly. It's a process of being built. And so we build our faith by staying on the positive sides of things and not looking at the negative, not looking at the condition that's there. So that key spiritual truth would go like this: as my faith increases, I can heal my mind and emotions. And then we go on to spiritually, being healed spiritually. Don't know if you ever felt spiritually deficient, but if you had, there's a healing resource for that. It's related to the others. If you are healed in one of these areas, it's going to affect the others as well, and you will be whole. I'm not talking about faith healing, some kind of a scam. I'm talking about true divine healing available. We don't know it, we don't claim it, we don't get it. So how about the spiritual thing? I like to think of it in terms of wellness. There's an old hymn, Phyllis, you know this by heart time and time again. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. 3 quick things that will go through that gateway of faith. When we go through that gateway of faith, we can focus on these things and move forward in building our faith to be whole, both spiritually, emotionally, and mentally and physically. Those values, those characteristics are peace. Peace is harmony and tranquility derived from the awareness of the divine within. Let me say that again. Peace is harmony and tranquility derived from the awareness of the divine within us. The divine, we wouldn't think of lacking anything. We wouldn't think of the divine as being ill. Well, guess what? In addition to be fully human, we are fully divine. And we have that to claim as well. And then there's love. We studied love last month. We talked about love as an eternal force of good that flows from source to and through all of creation, including us. The eternal force of good that flows from source to and through all creation, including us. And then there's joy. I like the brief description of joy: divine happiness expressed through us. Divine happiness expressed through us. Now, I have a little bit of an advantage here. The fourth Sunday of this month, the topic will be wholeness and joy. I know this because, well, I'm close to the person who's going to be giving that message, and that's Donna. And she's been working on it already. And she tells me multiple things every day about it. So I'm getting there. I'm getting to the point where I'm expectant with regard to expressing joy, expressing that divine happiness through me. Remember, I said it was wellness that I like to think of in terms of spiritual healing. We have something to learn from the Buddhists here. From a Buddhist journal, the optimal condition of health is one achieved when mind and body are functioning well and interacting together as one. Central to the Buddhist approach to health and healing is its emphasis on spiritual strength and on an overriding sense of purpose in life based on compassionate action for others. So there you have it: physical, mental, and emotional, spiritual. You can be healed. You can heal yourself. Remember, the divine is within you. It's not an outside job, a God out there doing something else for you, maybe capriciously if he just happens to be thinking nicely about you that day. No, the divine is within. And you can heal yourself. So how do you do that? How do I do that? I usually try to end up this way. Well, I'm going to suggest a couple of things that kind of come out of my message today. One is to find a chair, put it in a nice quiet place, and sit there for 5 minutes every day. Maybe at first your mind will still be elsewhere, but if you take that chair and that place of quiet, that silence time, if you take that seriously, things will change for you. You'll find yourself looking at things from a positive point of view, not from a horrible condition that your life seems to be supporting at that moment. So number one, find a chair and sit there. Well, you determine the amount of time you want to sit there. But I'm saying 5 minutes for me. I'm going to do that every day. And then the other thing, like Myrtle did, and like Carl Anthony's little song tells us, speak to your body. Speak the words of truth to your body. Tom, can you put that, just in case you don't know it, I'm going to put that lyrics, very simple lyrics, up on the screen. There we go. Every little cell. So I'm going to suggest that you do this. I'm going to sing it again. Then I want you to sing it with me, and this is a catchy tune. It's going to be in your head. I know it's going to be in your head. And we want it there, yes. Well, so, yeah, I'm going to sing it along with you. Come on, Phyllis. Come on up. I'm going to turn the piano. Nothing like a little impromptu approach to things. So I'm going to sing this as Phyllis plays it. So those of you online probably won't hear the piano. Every little cell of my body is happy. Every little cell of my body. I'm glad every little cell body is happy and well. You like it? Again. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad. Every little cell, every little cell. Well, once more. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little body is well. I'm so glad that every little cell in my body is happy. Well, yeah, go ahead. So I'm sorry online we may not do this, but Phyllis is going to give us. Let me get a mic up here so they can at least hear you sing. Hold the
We
mic.
can actually hear. Okay, thank you.
We can't hear you, Neil. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Phyllis. For those of us here, that was a treat, and I apologize that we haven't yet figured out how to get that piano out to you in virtual land. But I think you've got the idea. Let that song simmer in you. Let it marinate. Then you'll be on the positive side of things. Then you'll be looking at the truth and not the condition. Let me just say that key spiritual truth once again. As my faith increases, I can heal my body, my mind and emotions, and my spirit. One of Myrtle Fillmore's contemporaries was a woman named Hannah Moore Cohouse. Hannah wrote a little prayer, and Myrtle liked it so much she put it in a magazine that, anybody remember We Wisdom? Yeah, a little magazine Unity put out long ago for kids. And Hannah wrote this poem, and Myrtle loved it, and I love it too. And I just want to share this with you in closing. It's called the Prayer of Faith. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient and kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ, the truth that is in me. God is my health. I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all, I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. And so it is, amen.